I've got a piece of what I believe to be Queensland maple. This is it here. It's quite a light timber. It is nice and strong. I do tend to get, and it's not regular. It's a little irregular, and but I wanted to use it because I do like this timber, and so I thought, look, I might do a 2-string. What Shane Spiel tends to call a chugger. And you know, with the markets and stuff like that, a lot of times people tend to go for 3 strings, or you know, diddlies. 2 strings aren't generally super fast, but I've been enjoying making them, and I actually enjoy playing them too. So, so I thought, look, what I might do is just a time lapse of me building one of these guitars, rustic style. So I'm going to find the box, do all that sort of stuff, and take you guys for the ride. Let's see what happens, and if you enjoy it, that's good. And if you don't enjoy it, well, that's okay too. Anyway, here we go. Alright, so here you can see me measuring up the standard length, which is, I suppose in my case, 25 inches. Cutting off the excess timber and putting an angle on. The second part will be putting an angle on. Measuring up the box and getting ready to cut those the box holes out so we can fit the neck through. A little bit of trial and error there. So always cut them a bit smaller than you need. So you can always make them a little bit bigger. Alright, now this particular way that I'm filing the neck down, quite often I'll use the table router. But in this case what I'm actually doing is using a method I saw online. It's a smaller piece of timber, quite relatively thin, and I didn't want to put it on the table router because it's I think it would have taken too much off, but it's actually come out really, really nicely using the sanding technique. I used 80 grit paper, and then we're down to 120, 240, and 360, and then a 400. Now in this case here, you can see I'm actually drilling the recess for the Piezo pickup that I will put into the neck. I'll top mount it. Alright, so you can see there, that was really quickly, you can see that the recess there. I mount the Piezo underneath the box lid and directly under the bridge pretty much. Putting in the machine heads there. I also like to put the oil down, the stain down before I put those on. Usually I have time, but I was doing a pretty quick one. Measuring out the markings here, I used upholstery tacks in this case, cutting them down to size, and because the strings are going to be above the fretboard for a bit, and I was super gluing those into place, and they actually come up really, really nicely. Look great once it's stained as well. And here I'm getting out the Piezo and the parts for the electrics. In this case, I'm sanding down the bridge, the nut, sorry. That's a 2-string, so I've just marked those 2 points. And here I'm putting in the output jack in the rear of the box. Okay, so you can see here I'm actually wiring up the Piezo and the volume control and the output jack. It's a Piezo pickup. I twist the wires between the Piezo and the jack, and it just keeps the interference down. So here we're just mounting everything. It's basically the assembly part now, really. Just a case of putting everything together and making sure everything lines up. You can see here, this is how I actually mount the Piezo to the top of the board. Now I know some people like to mount it on the lid of the box, and I've done that before in the past, and I just didn't like the sound of it. And it is a personal thing. Some people will say they don't like the sound that I get, which tends to be, I think it's at more mids, and it's not as trebly the way I do it. I do seal it in hot glue, which you might see in a little bit. And some people mount them underneath the neck, and I'm sure that probably does a very similar thing to what I'm doing. This is just after trial and error the way I like to mount the piezo into the neck. So yeah, so look, just basically here, just clearing off some of that paper. In this case, for that felted paper from underneath the lid, so that the piezo and the neck will stick to the box. I don't put a recess in the top of the piezo boxes. I've done it in the past. I prefer, again, it is just a case of preferring the sound that I get out of the guitars without putting in the recess. And some people will disagree, and that's fine. That's okay. And some people do it the way I do it, and some people couldn't care less, I suppose. So each to their own. This is what I like to do. It's how I like to, actually to do my acoustic guitars. I know there's quite a few other builders out there who do it very similarly to me and to the way I do it. Here we go. So there's the hot glue. So mounting it sticking it to the through neck with the hot glue, and then I put a layer of hot glue on the top of it. And what I then do is I'll glue up the box, and I will glue the through neck to the top of the box as well. So everything's in contact. It's all tightly in contact. One of the things that probably happens out of this is that I probably end up with more of the neck in contact with the box. I tend to play a lot through amplifiers. I've just found that doing it this way cuts back a lot of feedback at volume. I can play with more distortion if I want to, and it's just the way that I like to do it. At this point, the hot glue is starting to cool down, so I want to try and close that lid as fast as I can, so that I get a good contact in between the lid and the top of the through neck. And here I'm just having a little bit of trouble realising that I actually haven't opened up the hole for the volume pot. Once that's done, it should close up quite easily. This is what happens when you build something, I suppose. This is the, with an instrument like this, I do believe it's more of a craft. There we go, putting a little bit more of the hot glue on just to make sure that we get that good connection between the box and the piezo. I would say that lutherie comes into it when I'm working on necks and the frets and scale lengths and things like that. I think with the cigar box guitars, when I'm doing them like this, it's more of a craft, but the argument keeps going. And so this is the stain. Now in this case I'm using Danish oil. You can really see how that's how the Danish oil brings out the natural figure of that timber. When I sanded it back, I didn't take it all because I didn't take it all the way back to the bare timber. I left a little bit of the prior stain on because I quite liked the effect that it was giving. I've used this timber before. It's all off an old cabinet door, and it's a lovely bit of wood. It's a really, really lovely bit of wood. So I'll be a bit upset when it runs out, which it will eventually. Hopefully I'll be able to find some more in my travels. This timber's actually by the side of the road timber. This slot, either that or from the tip. I was given it by a good bloke who also builds cigar box guitars. Big shout out to Pete from Buzzard Guitars there. This community has always been wonderful. It's always a very giving community, mostly, and people tend to really love sharing ideas and getting into discussions. We don't all agree with each other all the time on certain building techniques, but I think we certainly respect each other, and certainly respect. Well, I certainly do. I respect the different views from other builders, and I've learnt a lot. So that's the video. Of course, I'll still need to do a bridge, and I'll take you through doing that as well. Just going to let that glue dry and the Danish oil dry. Put that aside. Alright, so I measure how much I need. Clip it off, a bit of a backward angle, so I'm not. And I'll just give it a clean off on the file. I'll just try and make sure that that is not going to poke out too much. So just give it a little bit of a backwards angle. Don't know if you can see there. I'll do the same on the other side. I'll give it a touch up on the sander again, the belt sander. There we go. And the hammer. Don't have to worry too much about being too accurate on this. There we go. That's nice. Alright, so that's it. Still pretty rough. There you go. Give it a bit of a curve, make it look pretty. Good. And then you see how that's quite flat. I'm going to take a bit off. You see this there on one side. There on the other side. And that was the spot from yesterday. I did my 25-inch distance. Okay. That's going to feel a bit better. All right. Let's plug it in and let's see what happens. So I've got my little, just got my little practice amp here. Let's see if it's going to work. We did test it before. Okay, and suppose we'll and look at that. And you can't because that's better. Wooden picks. Yeah, let's put a bit of distortion in it. I'm pretty close, so. Should invest in a slightly larger chord, but there you go, from start to finish, 2-string chugger, and yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thanks for taking the ride. If you stayed, thank you for coming, and if you went, I wouldn't have known. All right, all the best.